articles on the front page of the papers. The New York Times talks about the scope and quality of the Gaza tunnels awe Israelis. You've got up to 450 miles of tunnels underneath. Just an extraordinary network. The Wall Street Journal has a story about perils for Israel. The refugees are growing, impatience against Israel is growing. And Richard, as we have said here, I think most importantly, Joe Biden's patience, not with the Israelis, but with Benjamin Netanyahu, running out fast.
Well, it should run out fast. It should have run out already. He's getting, in some ways, played because Bibi Netanyahu wants to see this going. Because so long as the war is going, I would argue, he feels it makes it much more difficult for people to move against him politically. But I think the president has to lean on him more. There's really only three options, Joe. We can introduce resolutions in the Security Council, isolating Israel to some extent. We can condition certain arms, which is what the Bernie Sanders and others want. What I think, again, he needs to do is go public. And he needs to be much more forceful, go over the head of this government, and talk to the Israeli people, talk to Israeli politicians. And guess what? You're beginning to see in Israel, finally, a post-October 7th politics begin to emerge. And people are saying, hey, to keep this war going forever isn't going to make sense. We're never going to eliminate Hamas 100%. Meanwhile, we're not getting the hostages home. And hey, what about introducing a political track? Who is going to occupy Gaza? We don't want to do it. How are we going to get Gaza rebuilt? We don't have the money to do that, and so forth. So you're beginning to see, for the first time, some politics emerging, and the United States ought to be a participant in that debate.
So, Richard, the president's going to meet with congressional leaders today at the White House with a big emphasis on national security supplemental spending. He needs more money for Ukraine, Israel as well. But Ukraine really appears to be funding appears to be in jeopardy because Republicans want to attach border spending security there. So what is the pitch, do you think, from the president about why support for Ukraine remains crucial?
Let's say two things. I'm not sure the Republican argument about the borders in good faith. The cynic in me thinks, maybe Joe disagrees with me, that the Republicans prefer to keep that issue alive, quite honestly, because it's such a powerful issue to bang the president over the head with. So one idea is maybe to split it out, and to basically go public and try to build a coalition of if you will, real conservative Republicans who believe in America is playing a role in the world, and most Democrats, and couple the aid to Ukraine with aid to Taiwan, which Republicans will want, with aid to Israel. So I would think basically probably separating out the border issue, getting the three, but the reason to help Ukraine, it's the most basic issue in the world. We can't allow borders to be changed with impunity by the use of force. Vladimir Putin must be stopped. He can't be allowed to go on. Ukraine should not become subservient to Russia. And we don't want the Chinese and others to basically learn the lesson that if they just use force and hang in there long enough, the United States and the West will fold their cards. That lesson cannot be learned.
So, Richard, let's talk a little more about Ukraine. I mean, Secretary of State Blinken, National Security Advisor Sullivan met with President Zelensky in Davos yesterday, again, stressing the U.S. is there to support, but the money's not there, at least not yet. There's real rising alarm from Kyiv about the delay in funding, and understandably so. How do you project these next, say, few weeks or months if the money doesn't come through? If a deal can't be reached, what happens next?
Well, we're already seeing it. These stories that Ukrainian soldiers are on the front lines and simply have one or two shells to launch in the course of a day, it's really painful to read. So they can get some help from South Korea, some help from Europe, a little bit from us still, but it's not going to be enough. So what they have to do, I would argue, and I actually think they should do this anyhow, Jonathan, is switch to a defensive strategy. Ukraine is not in a position to take the war to Russia. What Ukraine needs to do is dig in, make sure that Russia cannot overwhelm them. Advantages accrue to defenders in terms of you need less munitions and the like if you're on the defense. And I think Ukraine needs to make this transition. Nothing's going to happen diplomatically this year. Putin's playing for time. He wants to see what happens after November. But I think if Ukraine focuses on the defense, I think they can basically they can hold out. And again, maybe it's hoping against hope, but the flow of munitions and arms it won't go back to what it was. But again, I think it will go back. I don't think Republicans want to ultimately be tagged with losing this war. So my guess is Ukraine can get through this, but again, not with an offensive strategy, but with a defensive strategy.
Richard, this is what I'm worried about. I mean, you brought up that Putin may be Biden time, waiting for after the election. I'm sorry to ask to do this, but projecting way ahead, Netanyahu perhaps prefer a Trump presidency. Putin prefer a Trump presidency. Both those countries have a lot of stake in Ukraine, and they have a lot of stake in Israel has a lot of stake in Gaza. But will they let their concerns about the presidential election and who they want play into how they manage Ukraine and Gaza coming into the fall?
Absolutely. That's why there's not going to be any diplomacy that's going to succeed in terms of Ukraine this year. It's one of the many reasons I would think Bibi Netanyahu is playing for time. Look, there's a group of foes, beginning with Russia, that prefers a Trump presidency. Bibi Netanyahu, Hungary, Turkey also prefer a Trump presidency, much less emphasis on democracy, human rights, less pressure on making peace. But 90% of our friends around the world and allies, they are really uneasy, and they are all looking at their options. Do we become self-sufficient? Do we have to think about, for example, our own nuclear deterrent? That's the biggest debate in South Korea right now. Do we need to find new security partners, however limited, to substitute for the United States? What they're not saying publicly, maybe we have to cozy up a little bit more to a Russia or China if we don't have the United States there to depend on. So the entire world is beginning to have this conversation. I've made 2 trips out to Asia in the last, 6 weeks. This is the conversation every government is having. It's almost a how do we hedge against the uncertainty here in the United States. So yeah, people, even though our election is 10 months away, 9 months away, the rest of the world is already essentially factoring in those possibilities and beginning to adjust how they act in 2024.
Joe, one note before we let Richard go. As we listened to his insightful analysis, globe-trotting, shuttle diplomacy, buttoned up, I just learned in the commercial break, I hope you don't mind my sharing, Joe, Richard Haas was at Woodstock in the summer of '69.
No.
Yes. Parked his car on the New York Thruway and walked into Saugerties and saw Janis Joplin at 2 o'clock in the morning. Richard Haas.
Still have the tickets. They never collected the tickets, Joe. I still have them.
And picture this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's the other side of the story, though, that you may not know. He dressed as a cop and had a baton, and he was walking along, and he just tap people in the back and say, "Keep walking, hippie, keep walking." Is that right, Richard?
It was something like that, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. I just
wait. So you were actually at Woodstock?
Mental
It was
image,
the summer of '69, the summer between high school and college.
You don't have to tell me when Woodstock was. Come on.
You weren't born yet, Joe.
Yeah, I was born.
He was born.
We need information. So you saw Janis Joplin?
That's amazing.
So many. Did not stay to the very end. Did not see Jimi Hendrix. Did not stay to the end. I apologize. I'll just make one point about it, because you're a musician. As central as you think the music was, when you were at Woodstock, the music wasn't the most central thing. It was the mud, the rain, what you were drinking, whatever. It was the experience.
I think you should stop. Yeah.
It was 3 days of peace, love, and music, Richard. You could almost
Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Music and foreign affairs.
It's time to go.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Willie. This is really career enhancing.
What you tell me in commercial breaks.
Yeah, it's the last time we ever talked.
Yeah. Oh no! Listen. I mean, that's that's along with walking on the moon with Neil Armstrong. So that's a good way. If you couldn't do that in the summer of '69, going to Woodstock was the thing to do. Do you have any pictures from that?
This we need.
I don't think so, Joe. This is shockingly enough before the day of cell phones, and we didn't have camera and all that with us. I don't think there are any. But if you look really closely at some of those group pictures, I'm sure you can find me.
I'm sure we can.
President Emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haas, thank you very much.
Remarkable.
I need to see a picture of that.